In the northern reaches of Canada, North American river otters withstand the cold and snow in order to take advantage of the good fishing spots found here. 23 million years ago, another small aquatic mammalian carnivore was living the same lifestyle of fishing in the chilling Canadian rivers and walking across the frozen ground to get to other waterways. However, although this creature looked and lived just like an otter, its skull was a different shape, and it had 4 incisors instead of the otter's 6. These features, among others, outed its true grouping. It was called Puella darwini, and is the oldest known seal. Seals, scientifically known as pinnipeds, are caniforms, which are mammalian carnivores that are more closely related to dogs than they are to cats. Their closest relatives in this group are actually not otters. Otters are just another separate lineage of aquatic mammal that are more closely related to badgers and weasels. The closest relative of seals are actually bears, and they probably diverged from each other over 40 million years ago in the Eocene. Puella darwini is the oldest known pinniped, but was actually probably more developed to an aquatic lifestyle than otters are, and most likely swam in a different way. They had very large hands and long fingers for their body size, meaning it is highly likely that they were webbed. However, their tails don't seem to have made any specializations for swimming. This means they probably propelled themselves through the water using their limbs, whereas otters use their flat tails. This makes sense, seeing as modern species of seal use their fins to swim rather than their tail like otters and whales do. This is a method of propulsion that seems to be rarer in terrestrial animals that have evolved to live in the water, and seals share this trait with plesiosaur marine reptiles. There was another freshwater otter-like seal called Potamitherium, meaning river beast, that is known from France and Germany, showing that these freshwater-legged seals were successful, spreading throughout the northern hemisphere. The first ocean-going seal that resembled how they look today appeared about 23 million years ago in the early Miocene, but the freshwater river beasts lived on until about 10 million years ago. The existence of the otter-like seals and the seal-like seals overlapped for a very long time, and the river beasts were their own distinct stem group of animals living their own lives. It's just the ocean-going seals are the only ones that survived into the present. The first seal that took to the ocean was called Eneliarctus, that would have swum on the west coast of America. It had a short tail and short legs that could probably be referred to as fins, meaning that this was the first seal that started to really look like seals as we know them today. But its femur was still almost twice as long as living seals, meaning its hind legs would still be noticeable, and their femur would eventually shrink down to the point where it was almost like a joint bone. Eneliarctus used its hind and front limbs to propel itself in the water, which has actually resolved a dispute between scientists about the living seal families. The 3 living seal families are known as Phocidae, which contains the most derived seals that have no ears, as well as most Antarctic seals like leopard seals or elephant seals, Otaridae, which contains seals like sea lions, and Odibenidae, which has only one living member, the walrus. And all of these animals use different methods of propulsion in the water, making many scientists conclude that seals descended from 2 terrestrial lineages. Otaridae use their forelimbs to move in the water, whereas Phocidae use their hind limbs, and walrus use both. If Eneliarctus was the common ancestor of all the modern seal groups, then it would just be the case that Otaridae stopped using their hind limbs in movement, and Phocidae stopped using their forelimbs. And walruses may have separated from these 2 groups early on and just retained using all their fins to swim, solving the mystery. Despite the fact that Eneliarctus had many specializations making it more adapted for swimming, it probably would have been more tied to the shore than current day seals. This is because their teeth were more similar to terrestrial carnivores like bears, and were more adapted for slicing than piercing. This would mean that they would need to return to the shore with their prey before cutting it up and digesting it. A seal called Eotaria crypta, that lived about 16 million years ago, possessed the beginnings of what was the modern seal jaw, and shows a transition between the bear-like teeth and the modern seal teeth, freeing them up from the coast and allowing them to swim for longer periods of time. In the late Oligocene and Miocene, the ocean's ecosystems were changing and beginning the process where they would take on their current forms. There was a drastic increase in the amount of baleen whale species, penguins had spread throughout the southern hemisphere, echolocating dolphins first appeared, and now seals had entered the seas as well. The first dolphins, like Kentriodon, may have presented fishing competition with seals, and there is reason to believe that they could have been better predators, as they had echolocation, and dolphins are nearly always faster than seals. However, seals have very bendy spines and although slower, are often more agile and so may have been better adapted at eating slower and more maneuverable fish. And this bendy spine is seen in seals as early as Eneliarctus. Another benefit that seals have, not shared by toothed whales, is that they can go onto land. This is useful for escaping predators, but also can be used to catch prey. Leopard seals are one of the only seals that has adapted to eating larger animals than fish, and unlike orcas, is able to hunt penguins in the water, but also on land. Seals, and these other new ocean-going animals that appeared in the Miocene, would have offered new feeding opportunities for larger predators as well, most notably a new group of large predatory whales known as the raptorial sperm whales. They were relatives of modern sperm whales, but were not specialized squid eaters, and instead would have eaten vertebrate prey, like seals. Sperm whales have a feeding mechanism that is largely dominated by them sucking in their prey that will be crushed once the whale has swallowed them, and their teeth are only on the bottom jaw and are only really used to grapple onto the animal to help with this process. The macroraptorial sperm whales, on the other hand, have very clear evidence showing that they did not feed in this way. They had strong and larger muscles in their jaws and had much larger teeth that were on their bottom and top jaw that were far too sharp and specialized for grappling. They would have used these to cut and tear at animals and could have easily crushed through a seal. It is traditionally thought the macroraptorial sperm whales adapted in response to the dramatic increase in baleen whale diversity that occurred in the Miocene, and although this is almost certainly true, it is likely that the appearance of seals played a big part in this as well. Whereas large sperm whales were probably specialized whale hunters, small raptorials like Acrophyceta were only about 4 meters long, and so were probably too small to hunt whales. However, still possessed the sharp teeth of other raptorials, so could have been big seal hunters. As recently as 4 million years ago, baleen whales started approaching their gargantuan sizes that they are today, and decreased in diversity, which was probably a big factor in the extinction of Megalodon and the large raptorial sperm whales. With the era of super predators over, the newer, smaller apex predators of the ocean, killer whales and great whites, changed their attention to seals, becoming seal-eating specialists, so seals may have created selective pressures that changed the ocean's apex predators. So seals don't just represent another amazing transformation from a terrestrial animal to an aquatic one, but it drove the evolution of other creatures and were adamant in the oceanic ecosystems taking on their current forms. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be notified of future content, then consider subscribing. A massive thanks to my patrons for supporting me, especially Greenfalls and Fossilworth. If you would like to support me as well, then you can go to Patreon and make a pledge.